Caroline, all of them are here. Yesterday was the big day for the arrivals. Beautiful shot. KECHKI saying, alright lads, how you doing? Hasso Basso should be good. I'm excited for the Las Vegas Grand Prix. That'll be good. I know that's not until November, but that'll be cracking. Two props on the move now. Logan Air as well, just out for taxi, and a beautiful Dash 8. Good night, you too, Wendy. Have a great bank holiday and happy Friday. MaxJet, it was at Heathrow last Saturday at about 4 o'clock. That was the A380. Yeah, Lucy. I looked at one of my best pals is a massive Formula One fan.
You're watching NASA TV.
In the equipment log portion of the crew air logs, Yachty will be EV2, and he will wear an unmarked suit. The S names at 7.
And nice work, Sultan. And we can head to the up the Cedar Spur when you're ready. Nice work.
Copy. Hey, stop me, feed my green hook.
Copy, green hook.
This is Mission Control Houston. Views from both of our spacewalkers, now 53 minutes into today's spacewalk.
To the starboard Cedar with 4, which is the top right. And note as you translate that, when you get there, there is 2 APFRs. There's one in the top right and the bottom right. We want the one in the top right that has the ingress aid.
All right, I understand.
Bowen and Al-Nayati are heading out to relocate an APFR. That's an articulating portable foot restraint. It's often used during spacewalks to help astronauts secure themselves in one location as they work on a specific task.
Safety color. Bring my translation.
We copy the green hook.
And translating under the empty.
instantaneous opportunity to launch at 3:46 and 47 seconds Pacific time. We see a live shot of the Falcon 9 sitting on Launch Pad 4 East here at Vandenberg Space Force Base. This reusable two-stage rocket standing about 230 feet tall. The first stage is the bottom two-thirds of what you see there. That's called the booster. And then at the right over that, you see this black piece there. That's the interstage adapter, which connects the first and second stage. And then at the very top, the payload fairing. And you see SWAT painted on there. SWAT is tucked safely inside of it, folded up to about the size of a mid-size car.
Engine chill.
And we just heard the call out for stage 1 engine shield. And basically what that is just the getting the engine ready for the flow of the colder temperatures. So it's kind of like if you imagine if you were to jump in a really cold pool and you know your muscles tense up and everything else, and we don't necessarily want that with the engine. So we slowly start to bleed in those liquid oxygen to kind of bring it down to the temperature that it'll be seeing during flight. So that's really what that is. It's really preserving the stress on the engines and it's getting ready for flight.
Yeah, that was a great analogy.
So,
yeah, you made me cold thinking about it. So we see some of that liquid oxygen venting off now, both the first and second stages, right?
Yeah, and you're seeing that because the booster is very, very cold because that liquid oxygen is inside there. And soon you'll hear the call out for stage 1 RPO leaks. They're wrapping up fueling of the stage stage 1 right now, and so we should hear that call out here in a few seconds.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And so SpaceX is also loading helium
Stage 1
gas
fuel load, correction.
into both stages, and we'll continue to top off until about a minute and a half before launch. Falcon 9 uses helium as a pressurant, meaning it uses helium to maintain pressure in the tanks as liquid oxygen and RP1 are consumed by the engines during ascent. The first stage has 9 Merlin engines, hence the name Falcon 9. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, so you'll often hear references to MVAC throughout the count.
Yeah.
Next call out will come in just a couple of seconds. You'll hear that the spacecraft is on internal power and configured for a launch. That just means that the spacecraft is now running on batteries versus getting power from the strong back you see there.
Tanks are pressing for strong back retract.
And the strong back is getting ready to retract. The strong back is that mechanical structure you see just to the right of the vehicle. And they're just pressing up the tanks and getting ready for that. You'll see it tilt back slightly initially, and then when we get closer to launch, you will see it tilt about 45 degrees back, get out of the way so, the Falcon 9 can clear the pad with no issues.
And that tilt starts when you see that cradle. It's kind of like a hug around just at the base of the payload fairing there. You'll see those arms start to open, and that will allow for the strong back to start tilting backwards.
Yeah, that is correct. And you can see from the video, you can see that cradle's opening up, and then you'll see a few seconds after that's completed, the strong back will tilt back slightly.
And now we're going to pause for an upcoming poll here.
NLM on countdown 1. NLM copies.
NLM is the launch manager for this mission, NASA's launch manager for this mission. Again, we see that strong back retracting, and you see those connections between the strong back and the rocket. Those are umbilicals, and that's what continues to feed the rocket with liquid, electricity, gases, right up until launch, right?
That is correct. And what we're waiting to hear right now is just the SpaceX team confirming with the NASA launch manager that the team is ready to go. And so
LD, NLM, countdown 1. LD, go ahead. NASA is go for SWAT launch.
There you go. Perfect news.
Stage
NASA's
1 LOX
go
load
for
complete.
launch.
Stage 1 POGO.
Yep, and you heard the team is all good to go. And so right now, stage 1 LOX load is complete. At this point in time, the stage 1 is completely filled with fuel. We're just waiting for them to top off the stage 2 tank.
And today we're going to be treated to some sonic booms since the booster will land right back here at Vandenberg Space Force Base, just about 1,000 feet from where it's going to launch.
Yes, which is always exciting to see. I mean, it's just so fascinating that the booster is going to land basically very close to where it took off from.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And as you said, again, because visibility is so great, we won't just see the launch. We're also going to see that booster coming back to land.
Yeah, and it's taking everything I have to stay inside and not go outside and see this with my own two eyes.
No, you have to sit in here with me. And in these last few minutes, Falcon 9 is performing final health checks on its primary communications, avionics, and propulsion systems in preparation for flight.
This is The Rock. Range is green.
And we just heard that call out that the range is good. And we should surely we should be hearing the call out for that stage 2 LOX load is complete. And then at that point, all of the propellants will be loaded onto the vehicle.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
You just heard that call out. So all the propellants are done loading. And at this point in time, we're just gearing up for Falcon 9 to go into startup, which is basically the computer taking over and going through its last set of configurations and checks to make sure that we're good for launch leading into T0.
And remember how Denton was telling us earlier, you know, we see the amount of liquid oxygen coming off of the rocket fluctuating throughout the count. Here, that's what we're seeing again to maintain that pressure, the correct pressure in both stages.
Yep, and what you're seeing right now is them venting the LOX that was in the umbilical tower down. So it's venting that out, getting it all ready to go for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And we just heard that call up. Falcon 9's in startup, which means the flight computer is taking over and is just preparing for its initial launch sequence.
And now both stages are pressurizing for launch. Next call out in just a couple of seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
SpaceX launch director confirming go for launch. Range remains go, weather is go. This launch will mark the 100th first mission of NASA's Launch Services program based at Kennedy Space Center.
15 seconds.
Here we go.
10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of SWAT, our first global survey of Earth's surface water to study how this ever-changing resource affects our climate.
And there we get a nice view from the ground camera, and also we switch to the onboard camera.
Now, Denton, you didn't go outside to see the launch, but now we're feeling it inside here in the Mission Director Center, the rumble all around us from launch.
Absolutely. And now you're getting a good look at the onboard camera looking down towards the aft end of the rockets, and you can see the Merlin engines coming to life there.
And this room coming to life, really. Lots of rumble going on in here. And we're soon going to hear that the rocket is supersonic, meaning it's going faster than the speed of sound, followed by Falcon 9 reaching what's called max Q, the moment of peak mechanic stress on the rocket.
Yeah. Look, we getting nice views.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Just heard a call out for supersonic. Getting a good shot of looking at the onboard cameras
Max
there.
Q.
We just stepped through max Q.
Next call-outs are going to come.
Engine chill.
And back engine chill, which means getting the second stage engine ready to start. And so which means we'll be coming up on stage separation shortly, followed by stage 2 ignition.
We see this beautiful shot of all of the Merlin engines, all 9 of them lit up.
That's what 1.7 million pounds of thrust look like.
Lots of thrust. So the next call-outs are going to come in quick succession, so let me walk through them really quick. So at T plus 2 minutes and 15 seconds, we're going to have main engine cutoff. That's MECO, meaning the 9 Merlin engines on the first stage are going to shut down. And then a few seconds after that, stage 1 and 2 will separate. Stage 1 will do a flip and do a boost back burn to orient itself back towards Earth for that landing here at the Space Force Base.
And there we get a good shot of looking at the interstage. Basically,
Nico.
the camera's looking up towards the second stage.
Separation confirmed.
And there you go.
Live video of stage 1 and 2 separating.
MVAC ignition.
And there's a good look at the
Stage
MVAC
one,
ignition
start up.
the MVAC engine coming to life.
That's great. You are seeing the stage 1 booster do its flip. And now the engine bell of the MVAC engine lit up. This is a camera shot of stage 1 here, again on its way back to Earth. In just a couple of seconds, we're going to see the payload fairing jettison.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We just heard a call up for fairing separation, and there's a good onboard view of the SWAT spacecraft, and you can see the fairing is gone at this point in time.
Another camera shot here of the engine on the second stage continuing to carry SWAT to its intended target. We have a couple of camera views of this engine here, so you might see a couple
Stage
of
one,
different
back
angles.
shutdown.
Yeah, and then you'll see it cycling through the views of the stage 2 engine, and as we get closer to the separation, it'll go back towards the spacecraft.
And we just heard a call out for the boost back burn ending on
Both
stage
stages
1.
are on nominal trajectories.
And that call out was just to say both stage 1 and stage 2 doing what they were expecting them to do.
And we're hoping to get a video of stage 1 landing. So sometimes we don't always get it because of it's coming in so fast, and sometimes it's hard to capture it. So occasionally sometimes we don't get it all the way, but we're hoping to get a good video this time.
T plus 4 minutes and 10 seconds into the launch of SWAT, and we've had a nominal ascent so far, no issues to report. Again, this is a video of a live shot of the engine on stage 2. SWAT stands for Surface, Water, and Ocean Topography, and this will be the first mission to provide high-definition data on more than 90% of the water on our planet's surface. It's a joint mission between NASA and CNES, France's space agency, with contributions from both the Canadian and UK space agencies. SWAT is the 4th NASA LSP science mission to launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base, and the 6th LSP science mission overall to launch on a Falcon 9, Denton.
Yes, and we got a lot more missions coming up on the Falcon.
Yeah, to see the partnership really grow for you too. I mean, again, you really worked from SpaceX from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely, and seeing their evolution over the years has been amazing to watch.
So coming up, we're going to see the booster begin its entry burn soon, and again, that entry burn is to slow it down as it approaches Earth for the landing here back at the base instead of a drone ship.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome to see it come back to land. As I mentioned before, seeing it landing right very close to where it took off from is awesome.
So then how does this work? So again, we're going to have the entry burn that slows it down, and then there's a landing burn, right?
Yeah, so you have the boost back burn that kind of gets it back towards the launch pad, and then the entry burn kind of slows it down as it's coming into the atmosphere, and then you have the landing burn that basically puts it down gently on the pad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, SpaceX has become real pros at landing their boosters.
Absolutely. And it's becoming routine for them at this point in time, and so this is just a normal course of business for them.
Again, we are looking live at stage 2.
Stage 1 entry burn.
We just heard the call out for stage 1 entry burn. Means it's coming back into the Earth's atmosphere. And there we go. We got a good video of it.
Yeah, so you can see those hypersonic grid fins illuminated by the flame from the
Entry
booster.
burn
Stage 1
Those,
FTS is safe.
you see that the screen went black there. That's because they just
The
shut down the
the
engine.
That's correct.
Both stages are on
As
nominal
planned.
trajectories.
But I was talking about those hypersonic grid fins that you see. Those help guide the Falcon 9 booster back down towards Earth. So now that we're done with the entry burn, the next burn is the landing burn.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one engine right just before it touches down.
Correctly. Just gently set it down on the pad.
The next milestone for the second stage is going to
Stage
be
1 is transonic.
SECO 1.
Yeah, and SECO 1 is the first shutdown of the second stage engine. And then for this mission, we're going to have 2 burns. So you'll
Stage
see
1 landing, right?
after stage 2 shuts down, it'll coast for a while, and then we got a good video of stage 1
It's about to land. How exciting.
coming in for its landing burn there.
Again, the grid fins moving ever so slightly to make sure that it's coming down exactly how they want it to come down.
Yep, and you could see the pad coming into view.
There it is. Wow, those sonic
And
booms.
then the sonic booms. Trademark sonic booms.
Wow.
And good touchdown of the stage 1 booster.
Touchdown. Perfect.
Stage
Oh,
1 landing is confirmed.
so glad to see that live video. Again, sometimes
Yes.
we don't get it. That was amazing to see.
Yes.
And feel, really.
Yes, see and feel, and we get to use this booster again.
Yeah, yeah. Again, this is the 6th flight of this booster.
This is right.
Okay. So we are still awaiting, again, that shutdown
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
of the second
second
stage. Yes. And when it does shut down, it's going to be over the Pacific Ocean, just west of the southern tip of Baja California. Again, exactly where we want it to be, following that well thought out planned trajectory.
Yep, and the team is reporting back. Everything's looking nominal. Stage 2, it's right where it's supposed to be, and looking good.
MVAC shutdown.
And we should see MVAC shutdown coming up here shortly. And there we go.
Yep, SECO 1
Nominal parking orbit.
confirmed. That's the trajectory you're seeing. It's flying south from where it just launched, and it'll continue to fly south down towards Antarctica. And so again, everything going as expected so far. The second stage is now going to coast for about 30 minutes. You can see that it is shut down there from that view. And this is a view of the spacecraft. Again, because the payload fairing has been jettisoned, you see SWAT right there on your screen. Exposed now that we don't need the payload fairing to
Correct.
safely get it out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, correct. And yeah, once the whole purpose of the fairing is to protect it while the vehicle is flying through the atmosphere at supersonic speeds. And then once you get up out of the atmosphere, there's nothing to harm the spacecraft, so you can jettison that extra weight and give your vehicle a lot more performance once you get rid of that extra weight.
Okay. The engine not glowing orange as it had before because, again, it is shut off, so it will coast for about 30 minutes with SWAT attached to it before some maneuvers are needed to keep it on the right trajectory, again, to get it in the orbit that we want it in. So Denton and I are going to be back then with you to walk you through those operations. But for now, we're going to send it back to Raquel and Nadia, who I'm sure are very excited to talk about how the experience launched today.
Whew, that is right, Megan and Denton. Just 10 minutes ago, we watched a spectacular launch from Vandenberg here in California. Nadia, describe what was going through your mind at that time.
What a spectacular, truly spectacular launch. It was a very bright splash on the sky, and a very loud one, too. What an entrance. Welcome to the era of SWAT. Very excited.
I had some cheering going on here at the desk.
Yes, and the car went off, yes.
Yeah, we had car alarms going off. It was really exciting here for our view. Now, soon the SWAT satellite on board will separate from the spacecraft. SWAT stands for Surface, Water, and Ocean Topography. The satellite will survey nearly all the water on Earth's surface in unprecedented detail. SWAT will provide insights into how the ocean influences climate change, how a warming world affects lakes and rivers, and how communities can better prepare for disasters like floods. And we are covering every angle of the SWAT mission, from the new data the satellite will provide to how it is paving the way for future NASA Earth missions. Now, SWAT is a culmination of work by a global team of engineers, scientists, and technicians committed to improving our understanding of Earth. Let's get to know some of the people behind the mission.
Planning for future generations requires us understanding how much water we have.
And we need to understand the water cycle in a lot of detail, and SWAT will provide that for us. My name is Tahani Amar.
I'm Cedric David.
Mark Simard.
Christine Jabara, and I'm an integration test engineer at JPL.
I study the world's rivers.
I'm one of the principal investigators for SWAT.
SWAT is an Earth orbiting satellite. It stands for Surface, Water, Ocean Topography.
SWAT will for the first time make measurement of water surface elevation, not only on the ocean, but also on the lakes and rivers of the entire globe.
This in itself will be a scientific revolution.
Collaborations and relationships build bridges, and SWOT will be that bridge across the world.
SWOT is being designed jointly by NASA and the French Space Agency, with help from Canada and the UK. I was born in France, so SWOT is a match made in heaven for me.
Coming to work every day, it's always really nice to know that the system that we're building will collect science data that will help people.
I think finally I found a meaning to all of my research.
I believe SWOT will create a lot of peace because we all need water.
Now more than ever, it's important to recognize that water connects us all, and it might be the one thing that unites us all.
Really see how hard your team has worked there.
Yeah, we have a great team. You know, we gel really well together. With scientists, we dream, and engineers make our science fiction dreams come true. And then collectively, we make this NASA magic that enables discoveries and for the good of humanity and science.
It's magic indeed. We want to show you how some of SWOT's technology works, but to do that, Nadia and I had to go tap into our athletic skills for this one. Take a look. All right, Nadia, in order to learn more about SWOT, we have to play a little basketball.
That's right, Raquel. We're trying to explain how the heart of the SWOT mission works, which is a new instrument, a radar interferometer, which we lovingly call KECHKI. So KECHKI has two antennas separated by a 10-meter boom. One of the antenna transmits a signal that bounces back from the Earth's surface and received by two antennas with a little bit delay and out of sync. Now, KECHKI uses this information to compute the distance between the satellite and the Earth's surface, and they calculate the water height. So let's see how we explain it with the basketball. Okay. If you don't mind standing there, feet away from me.
All right, is right here pretty good?
This is perfect.
Okay.
And we will bounce the ball just like SWOT satellite bounces a radar pulse between two antennas.
Okay.
Yep.
So what are we seeing here right now?
We're seeing how the ball, which is our radar beam, bounces over the Earth's surface, and by knowing the range, the distance, and we compute the height of the water surface.
So the ocean isn't a flat surface, there's waves. Like, how do you calculate that?
That's right. Let's bring a box.
Okay.
So did you notice when the water is a little bit higher that the ball returns to the antenna, to us, a little bit faster? That's how we know that we're retrieving topography, just like in the name of the mission. A satellite is doing thousands of bounces per second to capture the data on both sides from both antennas over a wide strip on the ground, about 30 miles, 50 kilometers wide. And then once we do enough of those stripes, we'll eventually cover the whole globe.
Nadia, I could really hear your excitement and passion for SWOT in that package. Why are you so excited for this new technology?
Yeah, it's a really pivotal moment, I think, for our space science industry as we are testing new technology with SWOT. This is our first in-flight demonstration for the SAR interferometer, and this opens a new way of observing Earth water height. So yes, it is a pivotal moment, and I'm very excited about it.
Yes, and like you mentioned before, the scientific heart of SWOT satellite is the Ka-band radar interferometer, or KECHKI, and it measures the height of water on Earth. Jasmine is live at the Hawk's Nest to learn more about how the technology was built.
That is right, Raquel. We're back at the Hawk's Nest, now joined by Ava Peral, the lead systems engineer for the KECHKI instrument on SWOT. Welcome, Ava.
Hi.
We are so glad to have you here. That launch just lit up the sky. What did you think?
Oh, it was impressive, really impressive.
It really was. It was beautiful. So you work on the KECHKI instrument. Can you tell me what sets that apart from other instruments?
Yeah, so KECHKI is a radar, and NASA has launched radars before to study the ocean from space. But KECHKI is a very special type of radar. It's a radar interferometer. That means that the signal that bounces off the Earth is received simultaneously by two antennas. These two antennas are separated by a long distance, about half the size of a tennis court, and they have to be positioned very precisely to levels that are like micrometers. So we're talking about the width of a hair. So you can imagine that adds a lot of complexity to the SWOT mission, but it is that technology that enables the resolution and the accuracy that we're expected to achieve with SWOT of the Earth's water.
Right, so we're seeing things in a precision that we've never had before, which is very exciting and complex. So were there any challenges that your team faced while creating Karen?
Yes, Karen has been pushing the envelope in many, many different fronts. I can give you many examples. One, I just told you before about the mechanical precision that we need to have positioning these two antennas. We also have a very high power amplifier. We need an enormous amount of power to be able to get that signal back to the satellite from the Earth at a level that is detectable by the radar. And that level of power at our frequency from space is by itself a technological achievement. We also have the radar produces a massive amount of data. In fact, over 60 terabytes of data every single day. And that's a lot of hard drives, as you can imagine. So we really need to reduce that data volume so that it's manageable and we can downlink it to the ground. And for that, we're doing some fairly unique signal processing in the radar in space. So all of those are really achievements. Karen is a unique instrument and one of a kind.
Right, it really is. You and your team should be very happy with this achievement. And Ava, you yourself have been working on this for a decade. How does it feel? You know, I know those last few weeks can be like a race to the finish line. What is it like that you just saw this launch?
Well, for me, it's been my project since I started at JPL. It's been actually over 13 years. So this is really a very exciting moment for me. And myself and my team have been actually working very hard on what's coming ahead of us. Now that we're going to be getting the data from space, we need to make sure that the data is valid. It has the accuracy that we're expecting, and that's going to be a very difficult and critical task by itself.
Right, but this is just the beginning. Ava, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Raquel, back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine and Ava. Let's get to some questions for you, Nadia. Our first question is from a young space fan, Mark Andreas.
Hello NASA, my name is Mark Andreas. How we can see water from space?
Well, hi Mark. NASA can see different aspects of water from space. We could see how hot is the water, how the temperature, the surface temperature of the water is, how salty is our water, salinity of ocean salinity. We can see how heavy the mass of water, its gravity. We can see the volume or the height of water with satellites like SWOT, for example. We could see liquid water, frozen water, like sea ice. We can even see some content of water in the atmosphere. So we can see different aspects of water from space. Good question.
Yes, so many different ways to see water. And we also have some social media questions coming in. We have, how many times per day will SWOT orbit the Earth?
So on average, SWOT's nominal orbit is 21 a day repeat orbit.
Right. And we have another one coming in for you now. Let's see, how accurate is the equipment when measuring the current sea level from space? Meters, centimeters, millimeters, nanometers? We're really getting into that.
We're targeting centimetric accuracy of sea level measurements from space, which is a truly breakthrough. It's a 10x improvement of what we are currently doing. Yes.
Now you're doing such a good job answering these questions. We have another one coming in for you. What is ocean topography and how does it work with SWOT?
Well, think of it, ocean topography, just like mountains and valley. Like I was driving here from LAX to Lompoc, just like mountains and valleys on the ground, you see hills and dips on the ocean surface. So think of it as well.
Great explanation. We have another question for you too. Let's get to this one. Will you be able to tell how clean the water is?
So we will be able to make some interpretation of water quality and its chemical composition, but we're mostly focusing on the volume, storage, and the height of the water with SWOT.
Okay, let's see if we have another one for you. Will SWOT data help in predicting flash flooding more effectively than current technology?
We are with the rising sea levels, we do see more frequent inundations, including those related to flash flooding or sunny days flooding. And SWOT will continue the legacy of prediction of flood events related to the rising oceans.
We have one more social question for you to get to. Will this technology also help determine how much drinkable water is currently available?
Yes, we are targeting fresh water in our reservoirs in lakes and other reservoirs. The storage, the change in their volume and extent. Yes, drinking and available water for usage.
Wow, you just offered some great insight to SWOT. Thank you, Nadia. Now, before SWOT data, researchers could only collect information on a few thousand rivers and lakes, but with SWOT, it will be more than 1 million. Here is a look at how that kind of data can have a huge impact on people's daily lives.
SWOT is the Surface Water and Ocean Topography Satellite. It's an international satellite that's going to give us this complete view of the surface water here on Earth, what's happening in the lakes, reservoirs, rivers, and also in the ocean. It'll tell us about how sea level is rising along coastlines and in the open ocean, and really give us a good understanding of how surface water is moving about the Earth.
Our goal is to provide data, forecasts, watches, and warnings at some key locations like the Willamette River in Portland, which is a major U.S. city that historically has seen some catastrophic floods. The better quality of the data that we have that feeds into our models, the better the forecasts are going to be, the more time that people will have to protect themselves and their property and ultimately our communities. A tool like SWOT is going to help us with making these really difficult projections and predictions for the future.
This is one of many reservoirs here in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. It is a human-made lake. It is a reservoir operated by the Army Corps of Engineers. The water managers here, they use, weather prediction, they use hydrologic models, and the hope is that data like SWOT might be incorporated into those predictions to help them better understand this water body's filling and we don't want to overtop the dams, might want to start letting water out really quickly. They have to make a lot of complicated decisions. When you get a big storm event, we want to keep the community safe in the best way that we can. So how do we best manage operation of these reservoirs in terms of putting water out downstream to prevent flooding at a larger scale?
In lots of states, there are, hundreds, thousands of reservoirs, and many of those reservoirs don't have automated gauging available. And so these agencies have to kind of estimate how much water is in them and how that's changing. And with SWOT, they can just monitor that directly from space.
For us in Alaska, we have many, many rivers, and only a few of them are measured, or as we say, gauged. If we have data on when flooding is occurring or might occur, we can get crews out there to look at the bridge to make sure that the bridge and the associated roadway are still safe. If we can start collecting data on all rivers above a certain size remotely through satellites, it really opens up the amount of rivers that we can help understand what happens when they flood or how they flood. And that really improves our ability to manage our infrastructure and to design new infrastructure. That is where SWOT will really make a big difference.
One of the partners we're working with is the Department of Defense, and they're trying to fill gaps in the data that they have along the coastlines. Our military is obviously very concerned about what's happening on global scales, and they have installations across the globe. So SWOT will potentially provide an opportunity to fill in some of those gaps, allow them to make the impact assessments that they need for sea level rise in their facilities. So trying to understand and give them the information they need to plan for and then potentially adapt to these changes is really critically important.
Coastal wetlands like the Mississippi River Delta are extremely important because it acts as a buffer between us and the threatening ocean. With SWOT, because of its high spatial resolution, we'll be able to resolve water surface elevation right at the coast. So this is quite important because as sea level rises, the ocean will migrate into the land, bringing more salt into the land. So it threatens the infrastructure, the biodiversity in the wetlands along the coast. Hopefully, the types of models that we're producing can support how they decide to manage the river delta. And SWOT on its own will allow us to upscale these types of studies to the world.
I'm really excited about the new information we'll get from SWOT and how we can start to couple it to some of the needs that we see, both at the coastal interface and also on land. I think we can potentially see some immediate impact once SWOT's launched in these communities.
SWOT is an international collaborative effort not only between NASA and KECHKI, but with contributions from the Canadian Space Agency and the UK Space Agency. We'll hear from the UK Space Agency in a moment, but joining us now is Taryn Tomlinson with the Canadian Space Agency. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
Now, why did your agency choose to be involved with the SWOT mission?
Well, contributing to the first ever satellite to survey most of the water on the planet is truly an exceptional opportunity for us. Water is such an important resource and it is in so many ways linked with climate change. And we're so happy to work with our international partners again on solving issues that matter to all of us. SWOT is particularly important to Canada. We have the longest shoreline on the planet and we have over 1 million lakes, and it's so important to monitor the change of those lakes over time. SWOT is really going to benefit Canadians for strategic water management, but it will support humanity in the face of climate change.
It really is an international effort, as we say.
Truly.
Can you talk a little bit more about CSA's contributions to the mission?
I'd love to. CSA will be contributing a key component to the KERIN instrument. They're called the Extended Interaction Klystrons, built by CPI Canada. It's the high-powered amplifier that will help those Ka-band precision measurements for measuring the surface water. And so in addition to the device that we are contributing, we have science researchers who've been involved with the SWOT science team, and they've been developing the objectives, and they're also working to deploy instruments to key sites across Canada.
Yes, Taryn, we enjoy working with Canadian scientists. And speaking of that, what is the Canadian scientists as users are most exciting to use SWOT data for?
For the data, so we have some services, key services in Canada that we'd really like to improve. And so, as I was mentioning, that shoreline, navigation services to Canadians is going to be very important. Weather forecasting is going to be very important as well. As well as just to monitor, as I mentioned, the lakes and make sure that we keep our eye on the lake measurements. Our researchers are looking towards the north in helping northern communities as well. And so we're talking about clean water supply. We're talking about water management for the coastlines, for tides, and for estuaries, and also hydroelectricity. And I do want to mention, I'm so excited to see what Canadians will do with open science and open data.
Excellent.
Yes. Lots of data ahead. And I want to know, what was launch like for you today?
Well, it was exhilarating, and we had cheers and excitement outside. We were all outdoors. But what was specifically exciting for me was to see the return of the booster and that double sonic boom, and everybody jumped out of their skin. It was exhilarating. What a morning. Thank you so much. We're grateful to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. Early morning. Now, Beth Greenaway with the UK agency wasn't able to be on set with us, but she left this message.
The UK Space Agency has contributed to SWOT by enabling both our industry and our scientists to be part of the mission. We were approached by the French Space Agency, KECHKI, who are building the instrument for the mission. They needed a very complex bit of kit built in the UK, which essentially signals or moves the radar pulses around the instrument. And it was Honeywell in the UK that built this. In the UK, we're really fortunate to have some of the world-leading scientists who understand both the oceanography, how the ocean moves, and how satellites can be used to measure that. It's really exciting to be part of such a big, exciting mission. It takes a long, long time to come through to a launch in 2022. to be part of that journey on the policy side, enabling people to really do the best, so the best of British engineering and the best of British science, to be part of such a huge global water survey that's so important for climate change and is really going to make a difference to what we understand about our world.
All right, SWOT will measure the Earth's water on a global weather. It will take into account how much fresh water flows in and out of lakes, rivers, and back into the ocean. It will also look at shifts in sea level. Nadia, you have a demonstration that illustrates the importance of our water that involves a gallon of water right here.
That's right. We wanted to look a little bit of the water storage, water budget, water cycle, and we imagine that all the water on Earth represented in this gallon of clean water, and how the water moves. So ocean is the ultimate source of all our water. Land does not produce its own water. All the water and moisture on land comes either directly from the ocean or it's subsequently recycled from it. And so some of it get back to the ocean, but some of it makes its way on land. Some of it is stored in the atmosphere. So if you just do a half a drop of your magic liquid, that would be representative of how much water is contained in our atmosphere. So not too much, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Just a little bit.
So yes, and then about a tablespoon of that magic liquid, and I'll let you do the math in terms of how many. That much would be representative of how much available fresh water we have on land. So about 0.5% only. So also not that much. You know, most of it is contained in our salty ocean. So we humans, an ecosystem, we depend on this steady supply of water and moisture from ocean to land. And if the ocean supply is interrupted, we have droughts or even fires like you guys have in California that you experience perhaps yourself, or if the ocean supply of water is too much, we get floods and inundation, just like people like us on the East Coast. So this movement and the supply-demand chain in this completeness would be seen by SWOT, just like you and I seeing it in this gallon.
Yeah, and what if too much water comes back into the ocean, as you were kind of describing?
Yeah, well, then the ocean becomes higher. The volume of the ocean rises, yeah.
And how much would it rise?
Well, currently we're observing about 3.4 millimeter of global mean sea level rise. I don't know if that makes sense. So in gallons, that would be about 300 trillion of gallons a year. That's how much water we add every year into the ocean.
Okay, that is a giant number. How can you help put that to
Visualize?
scale?
Well,
yes.
I mean, I guess if you line up all these jars, you would cover the distance from a sun to Pluto and back. So yeah, it's a lot of water.
The sun to Pluto and back.
Yes.
A lot of water.
That's a lot of water.
Well, thank you so much, Nadia, for this. Now, a SWOT technology tracks changes in water volume over time, like you mentioned, and we will get a better understanding of Earth's water cycle. That data can be used to help prepare communities for rising seas and changing coastlines. Let's learn more about Earth's water.
Earth has about 370 quintillion gallons of water. If all that water was inside a single drop, it'd be 860 miles wide. Of course, it's not. Earth's water can be found all over the planet. Earth's water budget tells us where that water is and what form it takes. NASA has a fleet of satellites studying the location and movement of Earth's water, each designed to measure certain types of water. Some measure the movement of groundwater or ocean currents, while new missions like SWOT and NISAR will also fill gaps in our knowledge by measuring fresh water and possible hazards. Together, these missions help bring NASA's water budget and cycle into focus. So next time you feel a drop of rain on your face, imagine all the places that water might have been during the last few billion years and where it might be in the next.
You know, that video really shows off NASA's family fleet, doesn't it?
That's right, yes.
Yes, and let's jump back into questions from kids and social media. And, you know, speaking of family, Looks like we have a special surprise for you, Nadia.
Ooh, okay.
Hi, NASA. My name is Kira. I'm 80 years old. I live in Washington, D.C. I heard that sea levels are rising. What I want to know is if me and all puppies are safe. Kira, out.
Who did we just see there, Nadia?
Well, hi, Kira. Yeah, this is Kira, my daughter. So I hope that you parents will keep you safe and your puppies as well. But when you grow up by 2050, I think sea level, I believe, would be about 0.5 meter high in Washington, D.C., which is about 20 inches of extra water where you live. And so that would be your job to keep your puppies safe. And actually, Raquel, NASA has a very useful tool where we could demonstrate and predict sea level rise 10, 20, 50, even 100 years from now. Not just for here in Washington, D.C., but all major coastal city all over the globe. And I see that we have, yes, well done, NASA, sealevel.nasa.gov, very, very effective. Yeah, we have a link.
sealevel.nasa.gov. And we have some social questions coming in for you as well. Let's see the first one coming up here. Oh, actually, we have a photo. This one is a picture. We have a space fan. Let's take a look at Watson. Oh, look at little Watson there.
So cute.
His mom, Lucy, says he has been a fan since birth.
Wow, it's not far along, right?
Great. That is a very cute
Very
picture.
cute.
Now we have a social question to get to for you.
Okay.
Let's see. The first one coming up is, can you shortly describe the collaboration between KECHKI and NASA on the SWAT mission? Who does what?
Who does what? So NASA and KECHKI has been long-standing partners, working with KECHKI for more than 30 years, especially for satellite altimetry. This has been the relationship that we've been doing very strongly, going on into fourth decade. And when we talk about collaboration, it was a truly collaborative effort when we were doing both testing and engineering and ping-ponging our SWAT observatory back between JPL and Thales in France multiple times. So both agencies contributed major hardware instrumentation for the observatory.
And the questions just keep coming in. We have another social question for you to answer. Let's take a look. This one is, how long will SWAT be in space?
A good question. So the nominal mission timeline is 3 years. So we give our engineers a reasonable timeline to fulfill engineering objectives. But longer than that would be a very welcome bonus for our scientists to use SWOT data beyond those 3 years.
That's a great bonus. Let's get to the next social question. How is the data shared? Which institutions are the intermediaries and which are the end users? I will soon be working with the French government to study a link between water management and spatial infrastructure. It's an exciting subject.
Well, thank you. We think so too. So this is free for all. All data would be available to the public through NASA and KECHKI data providers. And not just that, we're actually welcoming a community to help NASA and KECHKI validate the data prior to the delivery of a fully validated data set. This is the experiment that Sandra mentioned that we're going through at NASA. It's called Open Science, and we are delivering and sharing pre-validated data sets with the science community. So all hands on deck. If you want to be a hydrologist or work with infrastructure as this person who asked this question, welcome.
Yes, data for all. Thank you so much, Nadia. We still have time to get your questions answered. Simply post your question online with the hashtag #TrackingWorldWater. Now, we are just over 41 minutes since launch. Commentators Megan Cruz and Denton Gibson are tracking the next milestones on this mission.
Yeah, hello again, guys, from inside the Mission Director Center here at Vandenberg Space Force Base in Central California. We're actually sitting right next to where Nadia and Raquel are, because this is where we can listen in to the teams who are still working the launch. So it's been about 41 minutes since liftoff from Vandenberg Space Force Base. We had a nominal ascent, and now we are looking at live video of the second stage. And the engine there not burning red hot anymore because it's been coasting now, right, for about 30 minutes, Denton?
Yeah, and what's happening right now is they're chilling down the engine. As we talked about earlier, they're just cooling down the engine, getting it ready to take on those, those densified propellants, which is down in the neighborhood of minus 300 degrees. So you see what's happening right now. It's just chilling the engine down and getting ready for second engine start, which is basically, it's going to be a very short burn that's coming up. And this burn is essentially just kind of doing a final orbit adjustment before getting into spacecraft separation. So that's what's happening right now. And we should hear the stage 2 engine restart coming up here in about a minute or so.
And so we just saw a map there. That's a trajectory. It's showing where stage 2 is. And right now it is just south of South Africa along the coast of Antarctica. So it traveled pretty far in just those 30 minutes.
And as soon as we get in range of the next ground station, the engine will start up again. And then shortly after that, spacecraft separation will occur.
And what ground station are we trying to hit?
So the ground station that we're kind of targeting right now is Hartebeestok, which is on the south end of the African continent in South Africa. So that's the ground station we want to get in range. We want to kind of capture that spacecraft separation.
And so again, we need this burn to get it to.
Yep.
All right, and we see the engine lighting now. Again, the second burn of the second stage of Falcon 9, still carrying SWAT.
It'd be a very short burn. And we already have
nominal deploy orbit.
Engine shutdown. And we just heard a call out that we are in the nominal orbit, so which means we are kind of on the correct path to go to spacecraft separation.
I do just love that we see all this live video, and we expect to get some live video of spacecraft separation again in just less than 10 minutes. So you want to stick around for that, but for now we're going to send it back to Nadia and Raquel.
Thank you, Megan and Denta. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory led the U.S. portion of this international mission. JPL's director, Lori Leshin, joins us now. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you both. What a fabulous job you're doing.
Thank you. Well, this is your first launch as the director for JPL.
Yes.
How excited are you for this mission?
Oh, I'm thrilled. I mean, first of all, it's just been an extraordinary day here, getting to be on console and then run outside and actually watch the launch, which was great, and hear those sonic booms when the booster came back. Our launch teams have been incredible, but I'm just so thrilled for the SWAT team, who's been, I've only been at JPL for 6 months. The SWAT team's been working on this for so many years, and thrilled for an exciting mission to come. Of course, we still need that acquisition of signal. We're not getting ahead of ourselves, but so happy that my first launch is an Earth science launch, because this is the planet we care the most about.
Fantastic. While JPL is known for operating deep space missions, how much of JPL's work is devoted to studying Earth?
It's more than people think, right? People know us for cool Mars rovers and helicopters and for orbiting Jupiter and these and wonderful telescopes that look into deep space. And of course we do all of that. But in fact, with the launch of SWAT, we now have 15 Earth science missions currently operating, either dedicated missions or big instruments on other missions. So we've got a lot of eyes on Earth at JPL. And the thing about them is, whenever we do something at JPL, we want it to be technologically advanced. So we're always the ones trying to really push the boundaries of what's possible, and that's really what SWAT's going to do. It's a whole new way of measuring Earth's water, and we always want to be pushing the boundaries of innovation. With all those 15 missions, now we've got about 7 more that we're working on that we'll be launching in the next few years. So a lot more Earth science work ahead of us.
So what are the next 7 missions that you mentioned, Lori? What's in the pipeline?
Yeah, so there's 4 of them are going to launch in the next couple of years. So the first 3 are fairly small, actually, small missions that have kind of focused objectives, but really important things like looking at aerosols, particles in the air, working with actually local medical professionals in cities to try and understand the impact of aerosols on health. What a really interesting idea, right? We have a mission that's going to be looking at the heat at the poles of the Earth to try and understand better sort of the thermal environment there, so that as we The poles really help drive circulation and climate change, and so understanding that environment is really, really important. And the third one is actually going to work on methane super emitters, one of the most powerful greenhouse gases. We're going to be detecting it with greater sensitivity than ever from space, so that we can actually mitigate methane emissions, which is super exciting. So those are all three kind of small ones. But the next really big Earth science mission, sort of on the scale of SWAT, is a mission called NISAR, which is a collaboration, NASA's first major collaboration with the Indian Space Agency. So exciting. And if SWAT is focused on water, NISAR is focused on land. It's really going to be a mission that's going to teach us help us sense and detect changes in land that are affiliated with things like earthquakes and volcanoes. Oh, I so wish it was up there right now as Mauna Loa is erupting. But it's going to help us see those things better from space. It's going to help us understand vegetation all across the land and many, many other applications that are going to be so valuable to folks. So we've got the water covered with SWAT, and we'll have the land covered with NISAR.
Lori, that sounds like so many great missions ahead. Thank you so much for joining us
Absolutely.
today. When LSP selects a rocket for a mission, they have to take into account just how hot it gets. Jasmine spoke with a thermal engineer about protecting the precious cargo.
Joining us now is Dave Pierik. He is the lead thermal engineer from the Launch Services Program for the SWAT mission. Thank you so much for being here, Dave.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here and talking a little bit about what we've been doing from SWAT from the thermal perspective.
Awesome, very exciting. So you focus on integrated thermal analysis, a big term. Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. So an integrated thermal analysis is just like it sounds. You're integrating different entities, and in this case, we're integrating a second stage launch vehicle model and a unique spacecraft along with the interface that connects the two, like your payload adapters and your isolation systems, and seeing how they interact with each other and making sure that one doesn't adversely affect the other.
Right, so you're really kind of protecting the spacecraft from the rocket and vice versa.
Absolutely. And so as part of an integrated thermal analysis, we're really running mathematical models to make temperature predictions on launch vehicles and spacecrafts. And so what that entails is, as a thermal engineer, you're really worried about three different modes of heat transfer: radiation, conduction, and convection. So convection is, think of when you're outside and the wind is blowing, that's convection. So radiation, it's like the sun beating down on you, solar radiation. And then conduction is kind of like taking a coat hanger, unraveling it, holding a lighter up to one end, and then the heat will transverse down through that little coat hanger, and that's conduction through materials.
Right, a really good explanation of something complex there. I understand there's different challenges that could happen along the way too. Can you tell us what was unique or challenging about working on the SWAT mission?
Yeah, so when we're doing any of these assessments, the three main modes of heat transfer that I just mentioned, well, once you're in the vacuum of space, one of them goes away because you no longer have convection. You're in vacuum, and so for SWAT in particularly, we had to face some modeling conversion challenges. We are working with our European counterparts in KNESS and Thales, and they threw us a curveball pretty early on, and we didn't necessarily know what one of their software packages were, so we used a lot of really good teamwork and collaboration throughout the agency, and not just Kennedy Space Center and JPL, but we leveraged our resources up at Goddard Space Flight Center, who has done some of these conversions before. And it's just the type of community and teamwork that our niche little area of analysis has grown over the years.
Dave Pierik, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Back to you.
We are nearing spacecraft separation. Let's go back to our commentators, Megan and Denton.
Yeah, we're about 51 minutes after launch, and now we are awaiting spacecraft separation. So SWAT, the spacecraft separating from Falcon 9's second stage.
Yes, and that'll occur as we get closer to the Hartebeest ground station. And now we see a good video there of the SWAT spacecraft looking up, and then there's another cycling through of the MVAC engine. So yeah, once we get to the point where we separation occur, hopefully we'll get a good video of that. And now there's a slight chance we may get acquisition of signal from the spacecraft at that point in time, but that's not the primary opportunity to get it.
Sure. So you see the telemetry data right there, stage 2, just at the tip of South Africa. You were mentioning a ground station there.
Mm-hmm.
It's because when the spacecraft separates from the Falcon 9 second stage, we want to make sure we know where it is,
Yes.
and we do that by using the ground station,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, and the ground station is what is capturing the video that you're seeing here, as well as the telemetry coming from the vehicle. So that's how the team down on the ground is able to see everything that's happening in the data and actually get the video as well.
So you see the SWAT spacecraft there. SWAT stands for Surface Water and Ocean Topography, and is a joint mission by NASA and CNES, France's space agency. They had contributions from both the